Few realize that beneath the Vatican squares and basilicas lie not just basements, but miles of hidden corridors said to hold documents capable of upending human history. Among them, so the story goes, are letters from emperors, forbidden gospels, and perhaps records the Church would never risk unveiling to the world. What do the Holy See's underground archives conceal? And why are even the most influential scholars admitted only for a handful of hours under the watchful eyes of security? Today, a sliver of that curtain lifts. The Vatican is a tiny state tucked into the heart of Rome. Its territory barely reaches about 120 acres, and its population rarely exceeds 800. The figure shifts, since citizenship comes only by special appointment, granted to those in high ecclesiastical office, to representatives of the Holy See, or to those working within Catholic institutions. Birth or lineage confers no rights here. The city stands on an ancient hill whose name traces back to the Etruscan town of Vaticum. Legend holds that Vatinine rites of divination were performed there, where seers delivered visions of the future. Later, Roman augurs took over, and the site acquired a reputation as a center of power, where, some researchers argue, the spiritual center of the Catholic world arose not by accident. Yet historians focus less on the hill itself than on what lies beneath it. There, according to many accounts, rests one of the planet's most enigmatic collections, the Vatican Apostolic Archives, commonly known as the Vatican Archives. The 7th century marked the beginning of the Papal States, and from then on, manuscripts, texts, and relics streamed in from across the world. We will consider which secrets, according to various scholars, might be locked in these vaults, who has been allowed inside, and what rare leaks have slightly lifted the veil. What is often called the Papal Library, or a repository of relics, is grouped under a single name, the Vatican Archives, an immense body of records still wrapped in an aura of secrecy. They are believed to contain papal letters, diplomatic correspondence with rulers across eras, judicial acts, and ancient manuscripts. Some researchers suggest these holdings may illuminate the Vatican's role in 20th century events, including its dealings with totalitarian regimes. Another strand of speculation points to relics that could reshape the understanding of Christian history. Chief among the oft-named objects is the Holy Grail, the cup from which Christ drank at the Last Supper, alongside other items of biblical provenance. The archives encompass hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, works of theology, philosophy, and culture, some surviving in a single copy. Beyond written sources, the Vatican's collection includes sacred objects and works of art, vestments of saints, ancient artifacts, paintings, sculpture, and jewelry. Many also believe that ancient Gospels may be preserved here, describing lesser-known aspects of the life and teachings of Jesus. A separate stratum concerns personal papal correspondence, closed-door negotiations, and internal church decisions. Scholars do not rule out materials on the activities of the Inquisition, on canonization processes, and on the Holy See's political influence across eras. Hence the recurring critical view. To deem the Church's reputation unimpeachable is, perhaps, overly trusting. One of the most debated ideas tied to the Vatican's holdings is the hypothesis that its stacks may include material on unidentified flying objects. Adherents argue that if such evidence existed, the Church would be unlikely to publicize it, given the potential shock to established beliefs and worldviews. According to some experts, the Church could be deliberately withholding information about extraterrestrial civilizations, and the Vatican might possess knowledge capable of changing how humanity understands the universe and its own place within it.
According to some researchers, the Vatican has already once reshaped how the world is understood, thanks to the Jesuit Georges Lemaitre, author of The Big Bang Theory, a graduate of universities in Europe and the United States who is often noted as a frequent visitor to the Vatican. It is sometimes suggested that his closeness to the Holy See afforded access to rare materials, hence the breadth of his ideas. Lemaitre also formulated the concept of an expanding universe independently of Alexander Friedman. There is further talk that the vaults may hold texts of mystical knowledge, from occult treatises to contentious documents on secret practices. Proof is scant, but this version is firmly tied to the Vatican's image as an ancient center of power and learning. If we descend from legend to infrastructure, the picture is more prosaic. The archive is a network of buildings within the Vatican Palace, with passages leading to underground repositories and technical facilities. The shelving runs to dozens of miles. The main holdings alone stretch for about 53 miles, and the total volume comprises millions of records. There are reading rooms and dedicated sections for manuscripts, all of which require precise climate control and strict procedures.
The collections encompass manuscripts, papal bulls, official letters, and diplomatic papers. A significant portion is on parchment and old paper, so space is consumed not only by the texts themselves, but also by the conditions needed to preserve them. The holdings are divided into historical, modern, and restricted categories. Access to the latter is minimal or non-existent. The Vatican emphasizes that with each decade, the regime becomes more accommodating to scholars. Reviews describe this as a trend, though practice appears cautious. In recent years, researchers have most often received selective access to materials related to the 20th century. Among those mentioned are the Briton John Martin, a scholar of the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, David Kern, author of The Pope and Mussolini, the Canadian Christopher Demms, who worked with materials on Pope Pius XII, Robert Symes, who studies the diplomacy of the Holy See, and Herman Port, who examines the Vatican's influence on European politics from antiquity to the Middle Ages. Journalists, as a rule, have seen only materials from the Second World War period and files concerning Pius XII, partially and under supervision. Earlier strata of history remain closed. Personal letters of the popes and political documents continue to be classified. Hence the observation by some authors. Interest seems to have stalled at Pius XII, while the rest remains behind closed doors. Reaching the archives of the Holy See, some say, is almost impossible. It is said that a few especially accommodating lucky ones manage to get in and later tell stories about supposedly miraculous documents that purportedly shed light on hidden knowledge. Such statements are often dismissed as inventions. The most realistic path is scholarly work. The archive is open to researchers, but only under strict conditions. A candidate must hold at least a master's degree and work in history, theology, philosophy, or religious studies. Clear research aims are required, specifying which materials are needed and why. Applications are submitted to the Vatican Apostolic Library or the Archives of the Holy See with a full set of official documents, academic transcripts, letters of recommendation, and a project description. After review, an authorization is issued. This stage often takes from a few weeks to several months, and interviews or methodological clarifications may be required.
The former age barrier has reportedly been lifted. Admission is now possible from 18, but applicants still must prove their qualifications and academic motivation. Topics span a wide spectrum, from church history to politics, diplomacy, and culture, and access is granted only to those sections directly tied to the stated research.
Technically, documents can be filed through the Holy See's Archives Department or via a dedicated online portal. Inside, strict handling rules and access regimes apply. There are historical, modern, and confidential holdings, with access to the last category minimal or non-existent. Specialized research firms and historical societies with established contacts can help with orientation. However, they almost never provide entry to secret or highly sensitive materials. Vatican control is exceptionally strict. If a question does not require an in-person visit, written requests are allowed. A response is possible when the request concerns digitized items or materials already in the public domain. The bottom line is simple. Entry is feasible, but difficult, and only if rigorous conditions are met. Professional researchers willing to complete the entire procedure have priority. For the general public, the odds are minimal, and inquiries about the most restricted matters often go unanswered. Hence, the stories of the unseen, allegedly discovered inside, are usually relegated to the realm of fabrication and overactive imagination.
Yes, images of unique documents and copies of ancient manuscripts are often dismissed as fabrications. By the same logic, the Chronovisor is likewise labeled a hoax, an apparatus that Father Marcello Pellegrino Ernetti was said to have created within the Vatican's walls. In 1972, the device was described as a hybrid of a photocopier, a microwave oven, and a computer screen, designed to project images of the past into the present. In essence, it was a time camera capable of capturing the imprint of any event. Then came frames purportedly showing the crucifixion of Christ and speeches by Benito Mussolini. Later, the Chronovisor was credited with recording video and audio from the past, and with time, even with obtaining information about the future. According to press reports, once Ernetti was exposed for fabrications involving the Chronovisor, he confessed to the deception and dropped out of the press, which had only recently been publishing sensational data from the past. What about the security of the Vatican secrets? The security system surrounding the Vatican archives is multi-layered and stringent. It protects the facilities and the information itself from leakage or destruction, and access to the stacks is tightly regulated. One of the key links is the Swiss Guard, an elite unit serving since 1506. The guards protect the Pope and critical sites, patrol the grounds, control entry points, and provide overall physical security. They do not directly guard the documents, but they define the outer security perimeter of the entire complex, and it is beyond that line that outsiders are almost never allowed.
Internal order is the responsibility of the Vatican Gendarmerie, the city-state's special police. It controls access to the archives, oversees general security, maintains order, and conducts investigations when necessary. The Gendarmerie enforces Vatican law and strict access regimes for especially important sites. What happens on restricted levels is not explained. Suffice it to say, the rules are known, and breaking them is strongly discouraged. Within the archive itself, an in-house security service is on duty. It regulates admission to reading rooms, monitors compliance with the rules, and stops any violations.
Smartphones, cameras, and all inks, pens, markers, felt tips are prohibited. If you somehow manage, as people say, to get inside, you will be given only a pencil and paper for notes, a simple measure that signals a threshold beyond which questions are rarely asked. The infrastructure is reinforced with modern protections, video surveillance, alarms, access control, and continuous monitoring of collection conditions. The storage areas are built for long-term preservation, rooms with controlled temperature and humidity, specialized shelving, and archival packaging. In parallel, a strict research protocol applies. Authorized scholars work only in designated spaces and follow established procedures. Cameras see more than visitors do. Some portions of the collections, especially those tied to state or church security, remain closed or are available only in a severely limited mode for many years. Working with such files requires exceptional grounds and a decision by high-ranking church authorities. Which grounds qualify and who exactly approves them are not publicly specified.
There is also an external security layer that is seldom discussed: the enigmatic organization Opus Dei. It is sometimes called the Vatican's Special Forces, a body made up of seemingly ordinary people, whom critics at times describe as 100,000 religious fanatics embedded in everyday life, supposedly always nearby. Opus Dei has several forms of membership. Secular members live in the world and take no monastic vows. They seek holiness through work, family, and routine. Many are employed across diverse professions and are active in public life. Spiritual members take vows and choose a stricter ascetic monastic path. They may be either clergy or lay people. Women also join Opus Dei, though they do not take monastic vows. The emphasis is the same: inner growth through daily duties. Core practices include prayer and spiritual formation. Members pray daily, attend Mass, meditate, and go on retreats to deepen their faith. Spiritual friendship and mentorship matter as well. Mentor-disciple relationships reinforce discipline and offer personal guidance. Asceticism is frequently emphasized, limiting sleep, food, and other pleasures as a training in self-control. Work is regarded as service to God, so Opus Dei members operate in business, science, education, medicine, and the arts. Grounded professions pursued with a declared higher purpose.
Critics call the organization closed and notably strict. They fault its conservatism and discipline, including practices of self-restraint using a cilice, a special belt for ascetic use. Secrecy fuels rumors of influence in politics and business. Observers also note the group's significant impact on the Catholic Church with the support of Pope John Paul II and subsequent initiatives. Points that spark debate, especially among more liberal Catholics. Accusations of ties to conservative forces in Latin America, Spain, and Italy are common, and these political and social stances often create tension. Knowing how the Vatican Archive and its security are structured, it is easy to imagine a scenario in which any leak or stray photograph sets a silent mechanism in motion. Opus Dei steps in, people who look ordinary, operating from the shadows. According to some claims, key knowledge is hidden precisely there, in collections that outsiders are unlikely to see anytime soon. And so the question of what the Vatican withholds from the public remains open. Even today, centuries on, the Vatican is a place where answers lie deeper than they appear. Some call it a sacred secret, others control over truth. What do you think the Vatican's archives are hiding? Share your thoughts in the comments, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and see you soon.